Now, with this video, I would like to look at importing some data into Power BI. In previous videos, we took a Google form, we filled the form in, that created a Google Sheet, and then we downloaded the contents of that Google Sheet in order to do Excel pivot tables or Excel pivot charts. Now, in this one, I'm going to say, instead of taking it into Excel, we're going to take it straight into Power BI. I'm going to open up Power BI and just go straight into a blank report. And then I'm going to go for an option called Get Data. And this is where you can bring in your Excel spreadsheets or databases, whatever other information you've got. But I'm going to go down the bottom here to an option called More. And this allows you to do a search in the top left-hand corner here. So if I type in the word Google, you'll see that Google Sheets come up as an option, and I'm going to choose to connect to Google Sheets. Now, if you haven't done this before you get to this point where it asks you for the URL, it will ask your permission to log into Google Sheets, and you will have to sign in. I've already done that because I've done this previously. So all I need to do is find the URL of the Google Sheet that I want. So if I briefly nip back to my Google Sheet, this was my form data that everybody's filled in. I'm just going to copy the entirety of this URL, just doing a Control-C, and pop that into the Google Sheets URL box. And when I say OK, it's effectively linking my report into my Google Sheet. And then I should be able to... Oh, it's making me sign in again. Bear with me 1 second. Now I should be able to connect. And there's a lot of sense in doing it this way. Where we downloaded it into an Excel spreadsheet, if we've had update to the responses, we would then have to do another download. If we do it this way, the data, we can just refresh the data and it will bring the data in to our report automatically. Now, when you see this screen, it gives you a kind of preview of what your data is going to look like. And sometimes you'll find you'll get a whole list of different options down here, depending on how many sheets you've got. I've only got one sheet, so I've just ticked the form responses sheet. And you should see that you get a preview of the information here, and you get a choice of whether you want to load it directly into the model or whether you want to transform it first. I nearly always go for transform data because there's usually something you need to fix before you can load it. But if you've done this loads of times before and you know that your data is perfect, you can just go straight for that load button. But I'm going to choose transform and just see what it's done with my data. And it's pulled across the information quite well from my Google Sheet. The only thing it hasn't done at the top here, can you see it doesn't realize that that first row is column headings. So there's an option on the home tab to say use first row as headers. And if I choose that, it kind of promotes the headers up to the first row of my information. And as it's done that, it's also assessed the data type of each column. Can you see on the right hand side here, there's an option called applied steps. What Power BI is doing, or Power Query at this point, is it's bringing the information in. We promoted the headers, and then it went through each column and it changed the data type to what it thinks it is, whether it's text or a number or dates. And you can check that if you look at the heading of each column. Can you see the timestamp's got a date and time symbol? Full name's got ABC, so it thinks it's text. If there were any numerical fields, you'll see a little 1, 2, 3 at this point. So you can choose, or you can let Power Query choose for you. Now I'm going to scoot along and have a look at some of the other options over here, and you can see I have got a few problems in that the quantity of all my safety helmets is appearing in a text field, so I wouldn't be able to add these values up. So one of the things we're going to have to do is split that data out so that they're values. Also, I've got the word safety boot and the color in the same column, and One of the issues I'm going to have with the boot size is that the size of the boots, I don't need to calculate on the size of the boots, but I would still like them as a separate column of numbers, because otherwise when you sort, a size 10 comes first because it's got a 1 at the beginning because it thinks it's text. So we need to convert those into a separate field and make those a number. And all of that we can do at this stage. I think the easiest one to do, I think we'll fix the timestamp. Now, I don't know whether you noticed when you download your Google Sheet into an Excel spreadsheet, the dates usually come out in the American date format. So that would have come out as the 7th of the 2nd instead of the 2nd of the 7th. And actually it means the 2nd of July. So it has put it the right way around for me because it knows that I'm in the UK, so it's looked at the UK settings on my computer and it's kind of fixed that for me already. But I don't really need the timestamp, so I might get rid of that. Can you see the tab at the top here called Transform? And where it says data type is set to date and time at the moment, I'm just going to say I'm going to separate that and change that into date only. Now you get this option to say, do you want to replace the current or add a new step? And it's talking about the steps here. Where it changed the type, do you want it to change it back again, or do you want it to overwrite the previous step? In my case, it probably doesn't make a lot of difference. I'm just going to say add new step. The full name column, let's say for some reason I would like to be able to sort it by surname alphabetically. At the moment I can't because the first name and the surname are part of the same column. So I'm going to choose an option called split column that will split it into first name and surname. In Excel I would use something called text to columns, and I need to have blank columns available for the data to go into. In Power Query you don't. Just select the column you want to split by, and there's some slightly more sophisticated split options than the ones you get in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to choose an option called by delimiter because I've got a space in between the first name and the surname, so I can say split by a space, each occurrence of the delimiter, and when I say OK, you should see full name has become full name 1 and full name 2, and I'm just going to rename those columns so that I know what they are. So that's going to be first name, and this one is going to be last name. Department can stay as it is, that's fine. Are you a new starter? Yes or no, that can stay as it is. Start date is fine. Now, from this point onwards, I have a bit of an issue in that I've got high-vis vest small, high-vis vest medium, high-vis vest large, all as separate columns. And really, I don't want that. I would like a big long list of all the different types of high-vis vest with their size and their colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select from high-vis vest small to high-vis vest large, and there is an option called unpivot columns, and I'm going to say unpivot only selected columns, and you should see what it's done is taken all those columns of information and made them into 2 separate columns. So the size of the high-vis vest is one column, and then the colour is another column. So I'm going to say, I'm going to rename this, let's say high-vis vest, and I'll rename this one high-vis vest colour. Now I could do the same thing for, let's say, the safety helmets. I've got those in different colour, in different columns. I've got yellow all the way through to red. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and select all of those safety helmets, and I'm going to do the same thing, unpivot columns, unpivot only selected columns, and that should have reduced that down to 2 columns worth of information. What colour is it and what the quantity is. But I'm going to rename this column before I forget what I'm doing. Bear with me a minute. So this is going to be safety helmet. And the values, I don't really want the word QTY in there. I just want the numbers themselves. So I'm going to go to something called split column, and I'm going to say, now you could say split by delimiter and it will work because there is a space, but there is a clever option with Power BI that allows you to choose by digit to non-digit or non-digit to digit. So if you know it goes text number or number text and there isn't a space, you could have chosen that instead. But for ours, I think it'll be simpler to do it by delimiter. And when I say OK to that, I scoot along a little bit, you'll see that I've got the numbers in one column, which have automatically reformatted themselves to be numbers, and I can get rid of this column altogether. So this is going to be safety helmet quantity. And I think that's all I'm going to do with my data for the moment. And then what we're going to do, assuming that all our data is clean and ready to go for our reporting, then we need to load it into the model, which is taking you out of Power Query and into the Power BI reporting section. So from the Home tab, I'm then going to choose an option called Close and Apply, and it will take a few minutes to run potentially as it loads your data up into the Power BI model. Now, for the next part of the process, we have loaded up into the Power BI desktop. So we were in, bear with me 1 second, the Power Query editor, and we tidied up some of our data, and then we went to Close and Apply, and it loaded us up into this Power BI desktop view. You can still see your data in this view if you need to. Can you see down the left-hand side, there's an option called Table View, and you can see the records of your data. If you needed to make changes to certain things, you can do here. You can change things like the data type and what kind of summarization you want, whether you're doing addition or an average or what have you. But for the moment, we'll assume that the data is the way that we want it, and we need to go into this report view. The report is built up of a number of pages, and the visuals on each page relate together. So what I'm going to try to do is create a few different visuals for you to see what they're going to look like. The first one is something called a table visual, which is this little guy here. And if I click onto table visual, it just makes a tiny little table in the corner here. And from the right hand side, this is where I'm going to get my data from. If I choose this little arrow next to form responses, these are the fields that are available to me from that form responses table. And I think the first thing I'm going to work on is safety helmets, because that's the only thing that's got a numerical value at the moment. Can you see it's got the little sigma symbol next to it? That's going to be the easiest things to calculate on. So we're going to do that for this first example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take safety helmet and drag it into where it says columns here, and then safety helmet quantity underneath. And you should see, if I make this little box a little bit bigger, it's basically summarized automatically each type of safety helmet color and how many have been ordered of each color. And when you click onto the column header, it's a sort feature, so you can see you can have the highest value at the top or the lowest value at the top, and then you've got a grand total at the bottom here. Now, be careful when you're creating new visuals. It's really easy to go back and grab a new visual, and it would actually change the table into the new visual. So if I want to create a separate visual, I need to make sure I've deselected the visual that I was on and then go back and get a second one. Let's say I will get a clustered column chart next. And I think I'll have the same data again. So I'll say I'll have safety helmets in the x-axis and safety helmet quantity in the y-axis. And if I make this just a little bit bigger, you'll be able to see each colour has, this is the number of safety helmets that have been ordered. Now, because these are specific colours, I think it would be helpful if the colours matched the colours of the safety helmets. And it's not as easy as changing the colours of an Excel chart. In an Excel chart, you can just click on each individual colour, and when you go to the format option, you can choose the colour that you want. Finding the format options for buried within Power BI can be a little bit tricky, but basically you need to select the visual that you want to change. And over on the visualizations area here, when you're in build visual, this is where you create the table or the chart or whatever it is. But next to that, there's an option called format your visual, which gives you different options depending on which type of visual you've chosen. And because I'm on a column chart at the moment, I've got options for X and Y axis and grid lines and so on. I'm going to go to this option called columns, and we're going to set the settings for each column. Now, if you wanted all of the columns to change to a different color, you can just change your color here and they'll all change to the same color. But I would like each column to be the correct color for that particular helmet, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to say safety helmets black, I want them to be black. Safety helmets red, I want them to be red. It's not very red, so I'm going to go to more colors and choose my own red. Safety helmets yellow, I guess that yellow is good enough. Blue for blue, and pink for pink. Now, these two visuals interact with each other. So if I click onto safety helmets black, can you see all the other colours fade out and it changes my table to just show me the values for that colour? And the same is true for each of my columns. When you want to switch the filter off, just choose the same column again and then you'll get all your data back again. Now, the other thing I've done with this data is I added in a location field, which if I go back to the data column, I think is right at the end. Bear with me and I'll show what it looks like. Oh, here it is, location. So you can see you'll be in Bristol, Cambridge, Manchester, etc. What I'm going to do is do a little map so you can see where we need to send out particular amounts of equipment. So there is an option called Azure Maps. I'm going to make sure I haven't got anything selected and choose this little north arrow, which will give me an Azure map. And I'll just make it as big as I can get away with on the page, I think. And then what I'm going to do is find the location field and pop it where it says location. And you should see you get a little spot now for each location. And if I hover my mouse over Cambridge, for example, when I click on it, can you see it just filters the chart and the table to match the location that I've clicked on? And if I click on it again, it shows me the entire country. Now, you can format those little spots if you want to. So if I make sure I'm on the map and go to this format your visual option, it's on a layer called markers layer. You can choose what icon you would like to see in that location. So you can have a little arrow or something. Or maybe I'll go for, isn't there a little safety helmet? That would be too cool. I'm going to go for a little flag, I think. And if I scoot down a little bit further, there's also an option to change the colours of those little flags. Now, if I zoom into the southeast, you'll see as I click onto that flag, it shows me the data for Luton. As I click onto London's flag, it shows me the data for London, and so on. Now, there's lots and lots more types of visuals that you can use with Power BI. The cleaning and transforming of data, I think, is much more efficient in Power BI than it is in things like Excel. I will do a whole series of videos on all the different types of map and different types of chart that you can do with Power BI. But I just wanted to kind of pique people's interest in pulling data straight across from either a Microsoft form or a Google form or whatever. So you can capture data from different branches around the country and then pull them together into a report that gives you really good visuals. Come back for more on Power BI. I will be posting a whole new series shortly.